the story of redemption, the story of forgiveness. Kind of the first. This is kind of the first Passover. Uh, we see it in Genesis 33, the story of Jacob and Esau, the brothers, the rivals. One Jacob who stole, kind of conniving, not kind of, but pretty conniving in his youth, pretty conniving and a trickster, just a con artist. He was selfish. But in chapter 33 of Genesis, it's a reunion of him and the brother that he fled from. And there's a couple of things that we see, and I probably won't be able to cover all of it because there's so much in this story throughout from the time that he left, because he gained a blessing. Jacob gained a blessing. If we go back in the 20s, 24, 23 of Genesis, when he obtained the birthright first, and then ultimately when he obtained the blessing, he stole it. He lied. It was a blessing from out of sin. It was a blessing out of error. It was a blessing out of deceitfulness. And when we are blessed in that way, there's no peace. He obtained the blessing, and then he had to flee for his life. He had to look over his shoulder. He had to deal with that worry. He had to deal with that so much, and that he fled. You could think of somebody, the movie Gone in 60 Seconds. The whole point of that movie was the lifestyle that he lived, though it was a glamorous lifestyle. He had the money, he had the cars, he had he had whatever he wanted, right? In that, but he didn't have the peace. When he made that decision to steal that car, he had to be able to leave it in 60 seconds. He had to make that decision that he was going to leave everything, or he was going to lose everything. He was going to lose his life of freedom, or he was going to lose his family. So he had to make that decision, and he had to do it in an instant. And so that's not peace. That's not success ultimately. So here again, we fast forward, and it's a redemption story. Jacob and Esau reuniting, and Jacob at this point had an encounter with God. He's known God. And at this point, he sees him and he's humbled. He's humbled, but he's still moved by fear, because he thinks that he's still holding on to the thought that Esau wanted to kill me the last time I saw him. And though it's been years, 20 years or so since then, that's the lasting memory. That's the lasting position that he had with him. So here we find him, and he's doing all these precautions because he's humbling in himself. He's humbling himself because he's ready for this encounter, but he's still filled with fear. So he takes all these precautions and sends people before him. And it says in 33 verse 1, and Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men. He divided the children unto Leah and unto Rachel and unto the two handmaids, and he put the handmaids and their children together, and he passed over before them and bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. And Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the women and children. So there was a reunion. There was reconciliation. There was love. Old stuff had passed away. They buried that. But again, could this be a trick? The trickster, could this be a trick to get me? I'm still going to humble it. Hey, I still need your grace. I still need you to say, I'm sorry, or I forgive you. He continued to make these efforts to say, hey, I'm offering you this. I know you got a lot, but I have this. I'm giving it to you. I need you to take it as a sign that you're forgiving me. And Esau, and he said, in verse 8, and he said, what mean you by all this drove which I met? And he said, these are to find grace in the sight of my Lord. In verse 9, Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep that you have unto yourself. And Jacob said, no, I pray you, if I have found grace in your sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen your face as though I had seen the face of God, and you were pleased with me. Take, I pray thee, my blessing that is brought to you, because God has dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he urged him, and he took it. So Esau took it. Esau received it, and he took it as that's our olive branch. That's our peacemaking. Now we're good. Now I found grace. You've done that, and that's kind of whether it's an oath, I don't know the total traditions, but that's in essence, that's kind of what I feel it was. And then it goes more. This story continues, and it take, I pray you, my blessing graciously. And he took it in verse 12, and he said, let us take our journey, and let us go, and I will go before you. And he said unto him, so this is Jacob, my Lord knows that the children are tender, and the flocks and herds with young are with me. And if men should overdrive them one day, all the flock will die. Let my Lord, I pray you, pass over before you, before his servant, and I will lead on softly according as the cattle that goes before me, and the children be able to endure until I come unto my Lord, unto Seir. And Esau said, let me now leave with you some of the folk that are with me. And he said, what needs it? Let me find grace in your sight, my Lord. So Esau returned that day on his way unto Seir. And Jacob journeyed to Succoth, and built him a house, and made booths for his cattle. Therefore, the name of the place is called Succoth. And Jacob came to Shalom, a city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came to Paddan Aram, and pitched his tent before the city. And he brought parcel of field where he had spread his tent at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. And he erected an altar and called the place Eloh Israel. So there's so much in that. The Passover, the first Passover, you've shown grace, you've shown mercy. Let me pass before you. Let me lead them, because I'm going to go gentle with them. I need them to be, because the people that we have with me, they can't be driven. They can't be overdriven. We can't go too fast. We can't press this too fast, or they're going to suffer and they're going to die because they can't handle that speed. So let me pass before you, and let me lead them, because we're going to go at a pace that we can keep up with. And he grants them that grace as well. The Passover, he lets them pass before him, a sign of grace, a sign of forgiveness, a sign of redemption. He moves forward, and then ultimately, look at what happens at the end. He finds a place and he builds a tent. He finally settles, because at this point he's lived with his father-in-law. Now he couldn't find a home until he found his peace. You won't find a home till you find your peace. So whether just think about it, you can be incarcerated and find a home if you have the peace of Jesus Christ in your heart, or you can be running from Christ and not have peace in there, but then it follows you. Even if you're in the free world, you're not incarcerated, and you don't have that peace when you're out, when you have the freedom, but you're not free in your spirit. So it wasn't until this point, till he came to a place of forgiveness, till he came to a place of facing what had hindered him. He had faced his fear head on and dealt with it. He humbled himself and set it aside, found grace. Now he was able to move forward, pass over that situation, and get a dwelling place. It's good stuff. Genesis 33.